We're asked to multiply using complex numbers. For the first example, we have the square root of -4 times the square root of -9. Before we multiply, we need to recognize these square roots represent imaginary numbers because the radicands are negative. This indicates we must first simplify in terms of I before multiplying. We cannot simply multiply the radicands. For example, the square root of -4 times the square root of -9 is not equal to the square root of the product of -4 and -9, which is positive 36. The square root of 36 is equal to 6, but this is not the product of the given expression. Again, we first must write these both in terms of I before we multiply. Let's write the square root of -4 as the square root of the product of 4 and -1. And let's write the square root of -9 as the square root of the product of 9 and -1. To show some additional work, let's write the square root of the product of 4 and -1 as the square root of 4 times the square root of -1. And let's write the square root of the product of 9 and -1 as the square root of 9 times the square root of -1. Because the square root of 4 and square root of 9 simplify perfectly, we'll go ahead and simplify now. The square root of 4 is equal to 2 because 2 squared equals 4, and the square root of -1 is equal to I, giving us 2I, and then times the square root of 9 is equal to 3 because 3 squared equals 9. The square root of -1 is equal to I, giving us 3I. And 2I times 3I is equal to 6I squared. I squared is equal to -1, giving us 6 times -1, which is equal to -6. So notice how the product is -6, not positive 6. Again, this is why we need to write square roots with a negative radicand in terms of I before multiplying. Next, we have the square root of -2 times the square root of -50. Let's write the square root of -2 as the square root of the product of 2 and -1. And let's write the square root of -50 as the square root of the product of 50 and -1. And again, let's show some more work here. Let's write the square root of the product of 2 and -1 as the square root of 2 times the square root of -1 times, let's write the square root of the product of 50 and -1 as the square root of 50, which I know does simplify, but we'll deal with that later, times the square root of -1. So let's write this in terms of I. We have square root 2I times square root 50I. And now from here, because the radicands are both positive, we can multiply the radicands and write this as the square root of 2 times 50, which is 100, I squared. And finally, the square root of 100 is equal to 10 because 10 squared equals 100, and I squared is equal to -1, giving us 10 times -1, which is equal to -10. Once again, notice how we don't get positive 10, which we would have gotten if we tried to multiply the negative radicands together and then simplify. -2 times -50 is 100. The square root of 100 is 10, which is not the correct product. I hope you found this helpful.